Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today I was doing a little bit of that exploring the inside as I was reflecting in the adventure that I had a few weeks ago. I am in the process of editing video, and every time I edit the videos, I get to re-explore and I get to re-experience that trip. And it's not a sad feeling, but it is a feeling of reminiscent. And I actually think that's pretty amazing because that's the feeling I'm going to have when I'm 80 years old and incapacitated. I'm sitting in my rocking chair, rocking back and forth, that I'm able to actually look back on my life and be able to reminisce about the amazing adventures, the amazing experiences, right? Even the turbulences and the crappy experiences that we have in our life. When you can balance it out with, right, all that kind of movement, right? And be able to sit back and actually enjoy looking back at some of those events in our lives, right? And to recognize it wasn't all crappy. So many people just live in the crappy part of their lives. I get it. I was that person. I was that person for so long, not recognizing that exactly thing that I was doing to myself, and I was doing it to myself, was the problem. If I could say one thing that I've learned over the past 6 years is that I took a lot of the blame, right? I took a lot of the problems of the world that I didn't necessarily need to take on, and yet I chose to right in the end I chose, whether I was misguided in that, or if in my own worries and stresses in my life that I just kind of, like that avalanche, that snowball that goes down the hill, and it starts off with it like a little snowmobile, or little snowmobile, a little snowball, and it starts rolling down the hill, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I created that in my life. I created something that didn't even belong in my life, and yet there it was, interfering and stopping me from making any kinds of movement for myself in any way. And I can't help anybody, right? And I recognize that if I couldn't help myself, and that's what, call it shadow work, right? They call it healing and wellness, right? Depending on the culture that you come in from, right? Maybe your religious, family traditions, right? That we have different ways of dealing with things and expressing how things are, but in the end, right? They could be very similar. And that's why it's so important to understand that it takes all kinds to make the world, because those answers are dispersed out there. It's not with just one individual group, one individual network, one individual idea. If you look at all those religious and denominations out there, right? You look at them, you could see all the similarities. And then maybe you'll see a half a dozen or a dozen things that are very specific to that one religious or political or cultural idea. And you go, oh my goodness, that's the most amazing, most insightful, biggest truth that I have heard in a long time. And yet, if you didn't give that person, right, because they were different, if you didn't give that person the time of day, that might have been information that might not have ever come across your path. A big part of what we're going through right now as a human race is in that amalgamation and in that assimilation of that which is so different, right, from each other. Different ideas, right, in so many aspects of our lives. And we are making friends and partners and husbandry and wifery and right, fathership and mothership, right, with our ideas, some of those ancient, right, ideas, some of those ideas that should actually be retired and put on a shelf, right? But because we're so stubborn, or because that's the way it's been for generations, that's got to be the truth. No, that's just stopping us in our evolution. That's just stopping us from making the necessary changes in the way we think and in the way that we live and in the way that we move, not just with ourselves, but with each other, right? In this digital age, we're this close to each other now, this close, right? And we are going to move deeper and deeper into it, because you can see that the mind, right? You look at those kids on those video machines, or in class and in the information that they're taking in, right? The age that they're getting their degrees at, the smarty pants that they are, right? This is the next generation. This is the generation that's going to take over the world. And at some point, they're going to be the old fogies. They're going to be the ancient ones with the ancient defunct ideas, right? The old fogies. Just like my parents were and their parents were, right? I don't have children myself, right? I'm kind of recognize myself as a little bit ageless in that, right? It was meant to be that way. I really do believe it. It keeps me youthful, and in the moment, I don't find the difficulties in it. But when I'm 80 years old and I have no one to hold my hand or change my diapers, let's hope it doesn't get to that point. But if it does, that's what it is, right? And that role that we kind of expected of our children, well, that's not going to be in my life, right? I'm going to be that example of taking care of myself in my own old age, right? Or finding the resources or the people to help me out, because there are lots of that, right? Meals on Wheels and different organization that help the seniors and the elderly in the daily needs that they have, and making sure that they feel like they are part of the community, and they are a big part of our population in this world is in that age bracket, right? It brings to mind that movie Soylent Green, if you guys ever saw that, where it almost became mandatory that at a certain age that people would just take care of business, that they've outlived their life. The clock has ticked, and even though that the body's ready just still to keep going, right? time is up. Here's your pill, right? Lay on this bed, watch these beautiful films of the world and Mother Nature and listen to beautiful classical music or whatever music that you like, and that's the end, right? Just to be born and have that existent and fill that space in from the time you're born until you time you pass away and you fill up that space. Well, I think I would like to be able to look at that space, look at what I filled that space up, be able to do a little bit of reminiscing, right? If it's 80 years old, 100 years old, I'm shooting for 114, that I'll be able to look back on my life and say, it's a good life, right? And that reminds me of a song, music video actually, not the song itself, but well, maybe the song itself, but the video. And it was a Drake tune, and I think it was actually called "It's a Good Life." I think the song might have been called "It's a Good Life." And in the beginning of this music video is, I don't know, possibly a homeless man, possibly a man on assistance, right? Somebody who looks like difficulties for me, and yet he was well built, he was handsome, and he was joyous in the life that he had, which wasn't contributing much to himself or to anybody else except for in that attitude that he had, that, right, he said himself, it was a good life. And it's what you do with that space that we're given, in no matter what standing or what class that we're living in, and what denomination or traditional, or, right, what family traditions have been passed down. We have to grow, and we have to do it in a way that's genuine to each one of us, so that in the end that we can look back on our lives, on our own life, and say that exact same thing. It's a good life. It's a good life. And I'm enjoying looking back at, right, all these experiences that I've had on this holiday that I put together, that some people might think is trivial, but to me it's everything. And to some people they might look at it and go, oh my goodness, that's so amazing that she does that. Well, you know what, it's a good life, because that reward that I'm giving to myself, it's out there and it's rewarding, right? It's rewarding. We don't know who we're going to impact in life, and we'll never know unless we, right, put that into action. If we stall out, it was something that I was looking at today, when I was editing the video, right? That holiday I put together was an expression of my own idea of a good life, right? In the anticipation that if I live and create that good life, then that's just the way it's going to be in my everyday, day to day. So that by the time I'm 80 years old and incapacitated and sitting in my chair, rocking back and forth, that I could look back on my life, right? Said, yeah, that was a good round. Next. Okay, you guys, that's going to be my good cheer. Pleasantly pleased with how my day went today. I got a video. It's done. It'll be posted in the morning. I didn't post it tonight only because it's the elections in the States. And, right, we all know you guys got your faces glued to the TV. I hope everybody is pleased. I'm sending good wishes to the new president. I'm sending good well wishes to the public, right? That they could look at something, and even if they look at it and go, oh my goodness, right? That's going to be a problem. That we can create something good out of that. That maybe, right? That you could look back on your choices and who your president is and say, oh my goodness, it's been a good round, right? It's a good life, right? It's in that living, it's in that whistling while you work, it's smiling through the pain, it's in moving forward despite the grief sometimes, right? It's all movement and it's all something that you can look back on, right? With pride, right? Because lots of that stuff is not fun to trudge through, but we trudge through it anyway. And sometimes in looking at that, right? Even in that, you could say it's a good life, right? Pat yourself on the back. Call it a day. The video is done. The house is done. I've got one more day off and I'm going to fill it up with something. I think I might go for a walk. Something for myself, right? Yeah. Okay, you guys, I'm babbling now. I'm exhausted, but I was on a mission to get my stuff done and I did and I accomplished and I feel good about that. And I just wanted to share. Everybody, have a great night, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.